everyone. Welcome to the Dear Teenage Girl podcast. I'm your host, Amy, and I'm here with a special friend. Oh, it's this way. I was going to be like, but then I went this way because you're on this side. Okay. I'm here with a special friend, Xandra.
Hi. Oh my goodness. I'm okay. Okay. Hi, my name is Xandra. I am one of Amy's best friends. I like to think,
Yes,
at least.
for sure. She is one of my best friends. This is actually take 2 of us trying to record a podcast episode because the last one we had notes. We were so prepared.
Oh,
and we
so
went
prepared.
so off script, and we're like, okay,
We're like,
God,
this is
like,
God.
This is what
He's
you
leading
wanted.
us.
And honestly, it was like I felt so led by the Spirit. It was a good podcast episode.
And then you text me, and she's like, "Hey, there's no sound," and
then didn't record the sound, and I was dying. I like saw it, and I started like crying because I was like, A, how am I supposed to tell Xandra? And B, this was so good.
I know. You know what? I took it as this is something that we needed.
Yes.
So
no, me too. It was definitely something that I needed to talk about, and maybe it wasn't for the whole world to hear at that point. But that was an interesting time because honestly, it's like it's not even like we could do the exact same podcast because we don't have notes for that podcast at all.
Well, it's okay. Maybe we will because I don't have
maybe
notes
God will lead it that way. Anyway, so Xandra, tell us a little bit about your testimony and how you became a Christian.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian family that had been going to church for years and years, like generations. So I am just, I don't even know what generation Christian I am. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But so I got saved when I was 4. I remember waking up. It was actually the craziest thing because I can't remember anything. And I remember this. I remember waking up and I just felt so weird, like empty. I never had felt anything like it before. I can't even like describe it. It was so weird. And then I remember going down to my mom. She was doing her devos in the morning. And we talked about it and I ended up getting saved. And it like, as soon as that happened, I felt like that feeling was gone. And it was like, this warm, fuzzy fullness feeling. It was the weirdest and coolest thing I'd ever felt. It was, yeah. And then last summer, I actually went to camp with Amy.
Yay.
Loved it.
We're counselors.
Woo! It was so much fun. But I actually was able to grow in my relationship with God because I had kind of been at a standstill. Like, for those of you listening who are not first generation Christians, it is very difficult to make your faith your own. And you hear everybody say it, you got to make your faith your own. And you're like, yeah, I know. But then you like kind of don't know how. And I don't know what it was, but it clicked. Like last summer, like I go to church and everything and I believe in God and all that. But it wasn't like I wasn't actively looking and growing in God until last summer, which then I did. And it was amazing. And then actually that fall, I ended up getting baptized at that camp in the very cold lake, but it's okay because it was worth it. It was amazing. It was actually my church's weekend getaway. So my dad was able to baptize me. It was all like my close church friends and family, and a couple of people came, and it was really nice. And so.
That's so fun. I really wanted to be there, but I couldn't make it work.
But it's okay.
That's so exciting. Yeah. So Xandra and I, we met in 2018.
Yes, because I went to Europe the next year, which was 2019. So
yeah, 2018, and we met at a camp in New York.
Where we counseled together.
Yeah, where I had been going since I was in the womb, and so that camp actually has a really big part in my testimony as well, which is so cool. But then actually the summer that I was going in 2018, I was going there, but it's like I didn't have a lot of friends that went to that camp. I had two really good friends, and like we're on good terms now, but it was like I could tell that they didn't really want to be my friend, and I was like in this sucky situation because like they were friends from church. They were like they lived in the same town and they were camp friends, and the reason why I was friends with them is because I grew up going to bunny camp with one of them, and we knew each other our whole lives. But it was like I was trying to be in that friendship, but they knew everyone, and I was on the shyer side and wasn't as outgoing, and I could tell like they wanted to be hanging out with the older people instead of me. Like I was their age, but I could just tell like they weren't really pursuing a friendship with me. They just let me tag along. And so I was like, I really want to find a good friend that I know that they want to be my friend as well. And it's like we are still friends outside of camp as well. And it's not just like you're friends whenever you're at camp, but it's like, okay, I'm friends with this person and they
Well, no, because there is such thing as camp people.
Yeah.
It's like this camera thing is throwing me off here. Camp people, like there are friends that you're only hang out at camp and then friends.
Yeah. And then it's like you can also have those really good camp relationships where it's like you still keep in contact and it's like you can call them whenever and you know that they're always going to be there for you and like encourage you in your faith. And not having really Christian friends at home, I always like really wanted these good camp friendships because I wanted people that could push me in my faith. And so we were going to go to the camp that summer and I did not want to go. I love the camp so much, but I'm like, I don't have any friends there. Like I'm going to be all by myself. And I'm at that point was very shy and more of an introvert. Now I'm more extroverted.
No.
And I was like crying to my mom, like, Mom, please, like, don't make me go. Like, this is not going to be an enjoyable week. But then I got there and I was putting my stuff into the cabin and my mom's like, look, that girl Xandra, like her mom and her were at bunny camp earlier. She seemed like a really nice girl. Like, I think you guys should be friends. And I was like, yeah, she seems really sweet, but she's probably way too cool for me, Mom. Like, please don't try to force anything to happen. Like, I want to make friends because they want to be my friends, not because like my mommy told them to be my friend. And so, but then
it cracks me up because then I'll tell my side of the story and it's so funny. It's so funny.
But then like I was like, hi, I'm Amy. Hi, I'm Xandra. And then we like moved our beds so that they were beside each other and we became instant friends and it was an amazing week. And yeah, what's your side of the story?
So no, it cracks me up because this was my first time at teen camp. I had been going to this camp like forever.
Yeah.
My grandpa, actually, I think my great grandpa had something to do with something or other. Said I don't really know for sure. I'm at the point where I'm like, cool. So I just been going there and everything forever. I'm actually shocked we never met.
Yeah.
Beforehand, like shocked. But so I remember I was like, this was the first year that my friend wasn't going. And I was like, oh, now I actually really have to make friends.
Yeah.
I would just stick with her the whole time. So I was very anxious and nervous. And I was like, great, this is going to be a terrible week. But I'm going because my whole family's going.
Yeah.
So I was like, fine. So I think we set my brother and sister up at bunny camp. I think. Yeah. So my younger brother and sister. Yeah. Because Cameron was a camper too. Yeah. So I met your mom, sweetest person ever. Loved her. I was like, oh my goodness, I love her. And she's like, and your little sisters, they were adorable. And she goes, oh my goodness, I have a daughter and she's a camper. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, whatever. I didn't think too much of it. So then I drive down. Well, I couldn't drive at that. Then my mom drove down with all my stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's that really nice lady from the bunny camp. And then she's like, and then I see you sitting on the front porch and I look at her. I'm like, she's not going to be friends with me. She looks too cool. She's going to like not talk to me.
That's so funny that you thought that.
And then like, so I'm like, no, Xandra, you got to be brave. So I went up. Was it your mom that introduced us or did like we talk?
I can't remember.
I can't remember.
It's either my mom or Heather.
Love Heather. Love Heather. She's great. But no, I remember. And then we were like inseparable.
Yeah.
And it was great. And then we didn't see each other for 3 years.
I know, because the next year I was so excited. I was like, I get to see Xandra.
And
I'm
then I
going
was
into
like, hey,
camp
I'm not
with a
going. I'm
friend.
going to Europe.
And that crushed me. I was like, crap. Now we have to do this whole thing again. And my dad's like, Amy, like, remember last time? Like, you were so scared and you ended up making a lifelong friend that has been so instrumental in your life. He's like, that can happen again. And a matter of fact, that did happen again. I was able to make some amazing friends that week, but I missed you so much that week.
Too.
And then COVID happened. And she lives in America. I live in Canada. Borders were closed, so we couldn't
But
see.
I'm so close.
I know.
That's the sad part.
Where my aunt and uncle live, it's only like, what, an hour?
Yeah, I think it was an hour when I drove.
Like, we could be an hour apart because I live with my aunt and uncle like so often during the year. But it's like we couldn't see each other because of the stupid border.
3 whole years. Actually, I think at that point, it might have been 4.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Could be like 3.5, 4.
But then as soon as the borders opened, then Xandra came.
I'm like, hey. And then I knocked on the person across the street's house. Because my phone wasn't working because I was in Canada. I'm like, I'm lost. And then she's like, she was the sweetest, like, older lady. She was like, oh, no, honey, that's across the street. I was like, thank you.
I forgot that happened. That's actually
I didn't. I'm traumatized.
Oh, like I was
over here, like looking at my speedometer because I'm like, it's kilometers here. I don't know what that is. So I have to like look at my kilometer and I'm like, okay, but it's smaller and it's dark and it's not as well lit in my dashboard. So I'm like, it was very stressful.
But we got to see each other. And I think what was so amazing is even though we didn't see each other for 4 years, we were still like, we prioritized our friendship and we were still able to communicate with each other, which was super cool, through like FaceTime or through texting. And it's like, just our friendship just continued to grow even though we weren't able to see each other. So that when we did see each other, it's like, 4 years had gone by. We were completely different, but it's like at the same time, it felt like no time had passed because we were still those same girls from camp that were inseparable and were best friends. And so that is what's so cool and amazing about camp friendships. It's like you don't understand that kind of a friendship until you're there because it's like, what, you're only together for like a week of the year.
But the difference is it's literally all day, every day, like 24/7 you are with this person.
Yeah.
24/7.
So you get to know each other very well because you can hide who you are at the beginning of the week, but by the end of the week, you are so overtired.
You're so sleep deprived. You just don't care.
Yeah. And so,
especially when you're a counselor.
Yeah.
Please go to sleep. Please. I have to get up so early.
But it's also cool because you have this same thing as your love for Jesus. And that's what also I think connects you really well because you already go into the camp or the situation having something in common that you can carry throughout your whole friendship in life.
I know. And it's so difficult nowadays to find like a good Christian friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That when you find one, you're just like,
yeah,
please don't.
Not those. Yeah.
You're like, please work out.
Yeah.
Please. But
yeah, so that was a little bit about how we met each other, how we are still friends. And
we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot.
Life has some roller coasters.
Yeah.
But, you know, God helped us through it. We helped each other through it. And here we are now. Tell a story. So I think today we'll see how the podcast unfolds, but I think we're talking about just like being content in like life, in your season of life, and just finding that joy and that contentment wherever you are. So what does that kind of like look?
I said I think that's what we're gonna try and talk about. Who knows?
But like what does that kind of look like for you?
So to be honest, that's something I struggled with for like ever. Just and it's so funny because like once again at camp last year, I realized this. I was sitting, I was like, I'm literally praying for this. This is why nothing has happened.
Yeah.
I struggled just because in my season it was well, it still is, but a season of singleness, which is totally fine. And I kept telling myself, I'm like, I'm totally fine with this. I was not at
Yeah.
that time. I was not okay with it.
Mhm.
And I kept praying for patience, which is so funny because I'm like, why am I still in this season of life? It's because I didn't learn patience yet. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, God, thank you. Thank you. But it's just but I've reached a point where I am not depending on a relationship with people as much. Like I
Yeah.
still am, but I also have God in my life more, and that's like
Mhm.
filled a giant hole
Yeah.
because I had like severe anxiety. I'd have like anxiety attacks multiple times a day. It was rough.
Yeah.
It was a little rough.
That's a bit.
But I also wasn't at a great place with God. And I was so
Mhm.
consumed about why am I still in this season of life?
Yeah.
Like, why am I still single? Everybody around me is dating, talking to somebody, like
Engaged.
something, yeah, engaged, married. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like having kids. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is
I
happening?
know. I'm like,
What is happening? First of all, I should not be at that age.
yeah.
No. But also I was like, I went to a public school, so like everybody was dating. So I'm like, is something
Mhm.
wrong with me? Like, and
Yeah.
no, it's not. And it's just, it was God going, hey, listen, no, you're not ready for a relationship. You
Mhm.
need to like grow and you need to work on these things.
Yeah.
Looking back, I realized that in the moment, I was like,
Yeah.
why? But now yeah, I don't know.
I
It's,
think
yeah.
I think that's a really hard one. It's like singleness because it's like dating culture is so almost like forced upon you,
Yeah.
like through TV shows and movies, and you just see it everywhere you go, especially if you go to a public school or even a Christian university. Like everyone's dating and getting engaged and ring by spring, and you're like,
Yeah,
ah,
I was almost like, maybe I should go there.
I,
And I was like, no.
yeah, I think I was definitely in the same boat. Back in the day. Um,
Because you're so old.
yeah, I'm you're older than me.
I
Huh?
know. It makes me
No, but
ancient.
like before I got into my relationship, I was really like, God, like, is there something wrong with me? Because
Mm,
it's like I never like no guys were interested in me. I would be interested in these guys, but I would never get anything back. And it's like you see everyone around you dating, and that's so normal that if you're not dating, that's very not normal.
right.
And so you're like,
And then
well,
you
why
start
is this
feeling
the
bad about
case?
yourself.
Is it because I'm not normal? Like, what's wrong with me? Am I not lovable? And I think that's what it went to for me, is it's like I'm
Mm,
not lovable. And then when I got into my relationship, I had taken that time of singleness that I was really trying to just grow in my relationship with God. And I had accepted it. I think like when did I get in a relationship? 2022, maybe. So it's like 2021 and 2022, God was
yeah.
really working on my heart. And He was like, you're in this season for a reason. That rhymes. But I was like, okay, God. And so I was really like focusing on trying to be the person that I wanted to date, because
Mm,
then that's who I would like attract.
right.
And I was really working on like not even focusing on boys, but like giving it to God and being like, God, I'm loved by you.
Which is such a difficult thing to do. I
It
don't,
is.
it, yeah. So,
Because it's like you know that God loves you, but you're not. It's like these like different like love languages that like that's how you receive love, but you're not
mm,
necessarily getting that from God. Like you're not getting like physical touch from God, and you're not getting like words of, well, like you can find the words of affirmation in the
right.
Bible, but you have to be actively like pursuing that and like looking for it and realizing, okay, God says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. God said that He loves me. Yes, but it's like if you're not digging into His word and like listening to those words from God, it's easy to not, like it's easy to miss that.
Yeah.
And so you're not feeling loved and stuff, and it's like I really had to give that over to God. And so when I got into my first relationship, I really thought that that I was ready, and I thought that I was mature in my relationship with God. And I think going into it, I was, and I was very dependent on God because I had to be for the past 18 years of my life,
Right.
because I didn't have anyone else to be
Mhm.
dependent on. But I think that in the flip side, what I did is I don't have any regrets about the relationship, but I wish I had
because you can always grow and learn
yeah.
from it.
But I think that I wish I had have been more content in my time of
Mhm.
singleness, and the fact that I was really still learning how to be more dependent on God, because then I became very dependent on my boyfriend at the time.
Mhm.
And like I needed him for everything, like every good thing, every bad thing. I just like I like went to that person because that makes you feel good, because you have someone to talk
Right.
to. And in the end, I think that it really kind of separated me from my relationship with God, because then it's like I wasn't becoming dependent on God. I wasn't listening to God about who I was, that I started listening to the like my boyfriend at the
Mhm.
time, who was telling me who I was. And it's
Right.
like that's coming from a worldly perspective
Right.
and not from a godly
Right.
perspective. And so it's like I found that I wish that I had found more contentment back in the day. And then in this season, I was realizing this is everything that I thought I wanted. Like I wanted so badly to be in a relationship. I prayed and I begged God, like, please let me be in a relationship.
But like, because I understand that, but then also you got to look back and be like, oh my goodness, this is what he's taught me. This is what like I'm learning, and it's so cool because I can look back and I can be like, wow.
Yeah.
At 16, I was not ready for a relationship.
Yeah. Like I was 18 and I was in a relationship. I wasn't ready. We both weren't ready. So it's like
No, because we were like, what is happening?
Anyway. But yeah, just like being content in every situation that you're in. Like I wish I had been more content in my singleness. I wish I had have been more content in okay, wait.
No, I know what you mean. In each season, no matter like, okay, so say you're single, you're like, I just want to be in a relationship. Well, you get in that relationship, and now you're like, I just want to be engaged. And then you get engaged, and you're like, I just want to be married. You get married, I just want kids. Like, if you'll like, I'll be content if I have this.
Yeah.
But you have to like step back and be like, I need to be content in this season of my life because clearly I am in this season of life for a reason.
Yeah.
And I need to look to God in order to see what that reason is. And it may not always be obvious, which is, great.
Yeah.
You're like, just tell me. Then he doesn't. He's like, no, you got to do the sign. And you're like, okay.
Like a literal sign that falls in front of my face.
Yeah, I'm like, I've literally been like, hey, God, maybe. And then it's like, no. Like, okay.
That wasn't a sign I wanted.
I was like, I didn't want that. I did not.
Sure?
Okay.
Like,
I'm like,
yes
I know. I was like, and I'm like,
please.
Are you sure? And then I get another no. And I was like, okay. But like, it's, you have to be, and this is actually something I had been, I don't know where I heard it from, but I loved it. And I would tell people, because people would be like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm happy and I'm content. But I looked it up and I wrote it in my notes what like the definitions were and everything. But now, and I'm so happy I can say this, I'm joyfully content. And joyful is more of a permanent thing. Happy is more of a come and go.
Yeah.
So, and it's, as bad as it sounds, I'm very proud of myself that I've reached that point where I am joyfully content in the season of life God has me in. And I one of the things I pray often is that I always stay joyfully content, no matter if I'm in this season, the next season, like whatever is happening, because clearly God puts you in the season for a reason. That right.
Oh, wait, I didn't even know it.
Yeah. It's my teacher coming out. But it's, I don't know. I try and go, what can I be learning? What can I be working on now? So I can stay content and focused and not in a negative way.
Yeah. And it's like sometimes you start idolizing these things and then you realize they're not all that it's put out to be. So it's like being content in where you are, that's where God wants you to be, and that's where God's going to use you, and that's where he's going to help you to grow and flourish, and being just so joyful. Like, it's just so amazing that God's there and with us, and he's not just going to leave us there in like that time of singleness, but he's going to help you grow so that these things that you're idolizing, you might want to rush into it right away.
Right.
But when you get there, you realize, okay, I'm not ready for this. Like, this is not what I wanted it to be. Take me back. But then it's like, if you're here and God is helping you grow and grow and grow, that it's like these things that you hold so high, when God is finally like, okay, I'm ready for you to be here, then it's like you can see God's hand in it, and it makes it 1,000 times better. So it's like you're not just trying to like jump for this and then realize, okay, gravity, but it's like God has raised you to this level, and you're like, okay, and God's in it. And then that is also going to give you so much more joy, because it's like you can only find joy where God is. You can find happiness in the world, but like Xandra said, that happiness, it's like it's going to change with the wind. Yeah. But you only really have that pure joy where God is. And it's just so amazing when you just are like, okay, God, I'm going to like give it to you, and I'm going to like be where you want me to be, and I'm going to also grow. And I think growing is something that can be hard, because it's like usually 100%. Growing means that there's going to be trials and there's going to be hard times.
Especially when you're young, one. Yeah. Two, you haven't made your faith your own.
Yeah.
This is like a personal walk. Mm-hmm. People can come alongside you and like help you through it.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's your choice to read the Bible every day. It's your choice to seek out God. He will always be there, but we have to seek him out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. That's so good. I think I'm definitely working on like being content and joyful like right now in my season of life. Mm-hmm. Like I'm preaching about it, but I'm also like preaching to myself about it too.
Oh my goodness, 100%. I am still not completely content. I've definitely gotten so much better.
Yeah.
But it's something you work on every day, because the moment we're perfect at it, we're not. Like we'll never be perfect at it. Never. Yeah. Until God's like, okay, you can come with me to heaven, and then you'll be perfect.
And then we'll be perfect. Yeah. It's an active thing that you're gonna have to work on every day. It's not like one time you're like, hey, I'm content, and you're gonna be content the rest of your life. Like, no, it's something, because the devil doesn't want you to be content. The devil doesn't want you to be joyful. The devil wants you to jump and get hit by gravity. You know? The devil doesn't want what's good for you. He wants you to fall, and he wants you to fail. And so he's going to be constantly tempting you against it. Like, well, I think you would be happier if this. And then you'd be like, oh, I would be happier if
maybe this. You're right. And then you're like, no.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. So it's something that you have to work for every day. But God is with you, and he makes it a lot easier. Like the more you practice it, and the more that you're really intentionally trying to be joyful and content in your seasons, then the easier it's going to get, because God is there, and you're learning to rely on God instead of other people. And that's going to make it so much better.
And I will say my anxiety has like pretty much disappeared, which is like incredible, because it was really bad.
Yeah.
Did I tell anybody about it? No. Should I have? Yes, definitely. Yes. But when I grew with God, I honestly didn't even notice it left, because I wasn't dwelling on it. I wasn't going, well, I don't have this. I don't have this. I have to worry about this. I have to worry about this. When I let go, and I was like, you know what? No. I'm just going to let go, and I'm going to let God do it, because ultimately he is in control of it all.
Yeah.
Might as well give it to him.
Yeah.
Like, he already knows about it.
Yeah. I think that that's so cool, because it's like sometimes you don't realize all that God's doing until you look back, and you're like, oh.
You're like, oh my goodness, this prayer was answered.
Yeah, that's why I love keeping a prayer journal, because you go back and
And
like
then
you
you're like,
highlight what God's answered and you're like,
this
my
was
whole
gonna,
page is highlighted. Like what? Like obviously God's going to have you wait for some things and he's not going to answer your prayer right away for
yeah,
every single prayer.
right.
But sometimes you don't realize how amazing God is and you don't realize all that he's answered unless you like really like look back and you're like, whoa.
Right. Well, no, like recently I was supposed to go on this trip. It was this big thing and I was so excited and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to Italy."
Ooh,
Yeah, I was very
Italiano.
excited. Very excited. And then I was very much stressing because I have to pay for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
we don't like
And
that part.
yeah, no. And then I also had to pay for college and gas and all these expenses. And I was really like starting to get some really bad anxiety. So I was praying about it and praying about it and praying about it. And then one day we get an email and it said oh my goodness, this camera's like messing
I
me up.
know it's messing me up so much.
I'm sorry. The trip got canceled, which I was like, I should be devastated by, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Because that like giant weight was lifted off my chest. And I was like, I feel like this was such a God thing. And I was like, wow, thank you. I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Yeah.
But it was the solution. And now that anxiety is gone.
Yeah.
And I can look back at my prayer journal and I'm like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And maybe it's not going to be answered in the way that you want it, but God ultimately knows what's best for you and is going to answer it in the way that he knows is going to benefit you.
Yeah. And in the moment, you may be like,
yeah. Like, I kind
was
of
that the best choice? And then you look back and you're like, oh, it definitely was.
Like when my parents were like, Amy, like Xandra and I were supposed to go on a trip
Which trip?
to
Oh yeah. I was like, which one? 'Cause we planned a bunch and then we're like, okay, we're broke. We can't do this.
I was
the
supposed to
one
go on
we
a family
actually
trip
were
with
gonna
her
do.
and my parents were like, no, you can't go. Like, because, well, at the beginning of the week, I was in the hospital because I was full body paralyzed.
I know, like, girl,
But I
I
was like,
didn't know
no.
about this, and I'm like,
Mom.
what the heck?
I was like, no, Mom. Like, I have to go. Like, please, like, I need this. Like, I need to go on vacation. I need this, and because that's what I thought I needed. Because in my heart, I was like, school is hard right now with everything going on with my health and everything going on in my personal life. I'm like, I need a vacation because that's what the world says. Like when stuff gets hard, you need a vacation.
Right.
And so obviously vacations are nice. And
they're wonderful. It was a lot of fun. I so wish you were there. It would have made it more fun.
But my parents held to saying no, and I was very upset.
We both
But then
were.
I also realized that it was for good because I was in the hospital all that weekend. So I was like, well, it's better me being in the hospital in Canada where I have insurance than me being in the hospital in
Not
South
even
Carolina.
where I live. It's not even like it's like, close to my house. No. It's in a different state.
Yeah. That's not even close to Canada at all. So I was like, okay, God, I see what you did there.
Yeah. He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
He is. And
I do love the fact that he sticks with us no matter what. Because we go through friends, we go through relationships, we go through all of this. Some people stay, some people leave. But to know that God is steadily with us, it's just, I love it. Actually, during COVID, a verse that like really, really helped me was Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I loved that verse. It's so simple. It's so simple, so like to the point, but it's so true. And it's almost like the simplicity of it just makes it that much better and that much like it's almost like a reminder for us. Like take a minute and just trust the fact that God is with you no matter what. He doesn't change. Unlike, life.
Yeah.
And he's a constant that we can rely on. So that like pushed me through and that really
that's been a really big thing in my life because it's like I've had so many friends leave me and relationships end, so many too, but they ended and then that person's gone, and that had really like messed me up because I'm like everyone keeps leaving, and I felt like, have you ever watched One Tree Hill?
No.
Okay, well, there's this girl. Her name's Peyton. The most horrible stuff happened to her. Like I'm like, this girl can't catch a break. Like her birth mom died. No, sorry. Her adopted mom died. She didn't know it was her adopted mom.
Oh.
Then her birth mom
That's
comes into her
traumatic.
life. Her birth mom comes into her life. She dies from cancer. And then everyone in her life keeps leaving her or dying or like kidnapping her. Like she does not catch a break. But anyway, the point
Oh my goodness.
the point of it was
Sounds like she needs to move.
yeah, the point of it was she's like, people always leave, and I felt that so much. That's like, people always leave, but it's like, okay, then they weren't meant to be in your life, and they weren't building you, and it's
or
like,
they were only meant for that season.
Yeah, for sure.
Which
and
is
it's
hard.
like, yeah, and
Like,
yeah, I think that's what I meant to say more. Is like, they were only meant for that season, and they're not meant to be in your life forever. And from a worldly perspective, it's like, you go to these people and you rely on these people and you give these people like your all, and it's like, I've always had trouble like opening up with people because I always felt like people would leave, and then that would frustrate the people that weren't going to leave, or said they weren't going to leave. They're like, why don't you open up to me? I'm like, because you're going to leave. And then they're like, no, I'm not. And then you open up to them and they leave. But then it's like,
I didn't leave.
Yes, you didn't. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The only one.
I love you.
Thanks. But then it's like, okay, it really made me be like, turn to God, because I'm like, God's actually never going to leave me.
Right.
And
That's what
God,
we need.
And so it's just like, okay, I need to turn to God and bring this to God. And then, yeah.
Well, sometimes we need that harsh reminder.
Yeah.
Because we get comfortable, and we're like, well, we have all these people. We're fine.
Yeah.
We don't have to pray as much or read our Bible as much because we don't have time, and it's fine because we have all these people around us. Well, God will be like, excuse me.
You're funny.
Excuse me. I'm still here.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, oh, bloop. And you'll be like, oh, okay.
And I think
but then you look back and you're like,
yeah,
okay.
I think there's something so big about like, okay, you're getting comfortable and then you're content in that comfortableness.
Yeah.
But then you also need to open yourself up to like God and letting him change you and letting him grow, and then also being content in that growth, because sometimes the growth is going to be hard. Recently, I've been growing a lot, but it has sucked. Like, not gonna lie, like, but it's like, okay, am I just gonna find contentment and joy when it's like my life is going well? Like, I've talked about previously in my other podcast episodes, it's like, I have been thriving at the school that I was at.
Right.
I've had such an amazing time, and I was so content and I was so joyful there, and I was growing in my relationship with God a little bit, but it wasn't like huge, because I had people around me, and it was like they were all Christians, so it was like this like Christianese kind of like thing, but it's like, I'm content and I'm joyful,
to get ripped out of that.
And it's hard to grow also like by making it your own. Like you said, because you do have to make your faith your own. It can't just be something that you rely on because of friends or because of family. And so it's like, I had left my family, so I was trying to make my faith my own, but then I was put into this group where it's like, now I'm around Christians all the time, so it's hard to again make it my own, because I would be going to chapels a bunch of times a week, and I would be talking about Jesus a lot with my friends, but then I would like take away from my personal Bible time, because I'm like, oh, I'm getting enough Jesus. And so it's like, I was just content in that, and I was joyful, and I was like, thank you, God, like, I've been waiting for this. But then it's like, then that was taken away, but then am I all of a sudden going to turn on God? Like, that's our human instincts, because you're like, you took it away from me, but he didn't take away from you. Like, life happened, and sin happened, like, not that I sinned. Well, I probably did at some point, but it's like
in the world.
There's sin in the world, so that means bad things are going to happen. And so it was taken away from me. God didn't take it away from me, but it was taken away from me. And God's going to use that. So then I need to find that contentment and that joy. And what God, I was talking about God didn't take away, and I was going to say how God took away. Anyway, and what was taken away from me. And so it's like, okay, now how am I finding that joy and how am I finding that contentment instead of them blaming God? Because I think it's really easy to blame God because you're like, you're supposed to be all powerful and you're supposed to be all knowing, and you knew how I was thriving, like you knew how I was, you know. And then it's like, yet you let that be taken away from me. But it's like, but he's all knowing, so he knows the future and he knows how in the long run this is gonna benefit you. And
which is
so
hard.
Yeah,
like, but we don't see that.
Yeah. And so
you can see this much.
Yeah.
And I
like
can
tunnel
see
vision.
it all.
Yeah. So it's like you have like these like tunnel vision like goggles on. I felt like a minion for a second. Minion.
I was like, you look beautiful.
Thanks. But it's like ultimately finding contentment and joy isn't just in the good times. It's also in the bad times.
Right.
And it's hard. I'm not going to downplay it. I'm struggling with it a lot. But it's also like I'm preaching to myself. Like it's something that you need to do.
It is. And you got to lean on, yes, others around you. 100%.
Yeah.
Like God puts people in your life for that reason.
Yeah.
But also and ultimately you got to lean on God. So
it says in 1 Timothy 6:6, but godliness with contentment is great gain. Which I find so cool because it's like,
it's just a reminder. It's those reminders that you're like, I didn't even know I needed that, but I needed that.
Yeah.
And that was a major needed thing.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's podcast episode. I had a blast. I hope that you had a blast too.
I loved it.
And hopefully you enjoy our laughing back and forth and you come and listen to a podcast episode next week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime.